All her instruments went crazy at once. The navigation computer showed her moving forward and backward. ATI Wu's ship limped through space like a wounded bird. The hull was cracked in a dozen places. Half the systems were offline. The engine sputtered and coughed. It should have fallen apart hours ago, but Jiwoo held it together, the same way she'd held together the falling container. Through will and skill and pure determination, she kept her broken ship flying. Behind her, the darkness was receding. Stars that had gone dark were lighting up again. Systems that had vanished were reappearing. All across the galaxy, sensors detected the change. The void was retreating. The Coalition monitoring stations picked up her signal 3 days after she'd shut down the ancient mechanism. "Outpost Serenity, this is Engineer Han Ji-woo," she transmitted. Her voice was tired but cheerful. "Problem solved. The darkness is going away. I'm coming home now. Sorry for worrying everyone." The simple message triggered chaos across the galaxy. She had done it. The small human engineer had succeeded where everyone else failed. She had entered the darkness that swallowed entire fleets and come back alive. She had stopped the expansion that threatened to consume the galaxy. On Outpost Serenity, Commander Dae-hyun received the message and sat down hard in his chair. His hands shook. He had been certain Jiwoo was dead. He had already written the letter to her family on Earth. He had prepared himself for the loss. Now she was coming home. "Prepare for priority docking," he ordered. His voice cracked with emotion. "Clear Bay 1. I want medical teams standing by. And someone get Ambassador Thexanar. He's going to want to know about this." The news spread through the station faster than light. Jiwoo was alive. Jiwoo was coming back. The strange girl who smiled at everyone had saved the galaxy. Yejin cried when she heard. Byung-ho sat in his workshop and couldn't stop grinning. Soo-min immediately began organizing a reception, coordinating with station security to manage what would certainly be a massive crowd. By the time Jiwoo's ship came into sensor range, the docking bay was packed with thousands of beings from dozens of species. Coalition ambassadors had arrived via emergency transport. Military leaders stood in full dress uniform. Scientists waited with recording equipment. Everyone wanted to witness the return of the hero. Commander Dae-hyun personally guided Jiwoo's ship in for docking. "We can see your damage, Jiwoo. Do you need assistance?" "I can manage, sir," she replied. "The ship's pretty beat up, but she's still flying." Just like me. The ship docked with a grinding noise that made engineers wince. When the airlock finally opened, everyone held their breath. Jiwoo walked out carrying a small bag of personal items. Her engineering coveralls were stained and torn. Her face was tired. Her hair was messy. She looked around at the massive crowd and blinked in surprise. "Oh," she said. "This is unexpected." The silence broke into cheers, applause, and sounds of celebration from dozens of different species. Jiwoo stood awkwardly, not sure what to do with all the attention. Commander Dae-hyun walked forward and pulled her into a brief hug. "Welcome home, engineer." "Thank you, sir." Jiwoo smiled. "I'm sorry about the ship. Chief Byung-ho is probably going to be upset about all the damage. I pushed it pretty hard. I think he'll forgive you," the commander said with a laugh. Ambassador Thexanar approached, moving with unusual grace for someone his size. He performed a complex gesture with all 4 of his hands. It was the highest honor a Vexthari could give. "Han Jiwoo," he said formally, "on behalf of the Galactic Coalition and my people, I offer profound gratitude and deepest respect. You have saved countless billions of lives. You have accomplished what the greatest minds and strongest warriors of 47 species could not. What reward can we offer for such service?" Jiwoo thought about it seriously. Could the Coalition help fund agricultural stations? The ones that grow food for refugees and poor systems? They always need better equipment and support. The ambassador blinked, all 4 eyes in sequence. "You want farm funding?" "For yourself?" "Not for me," Jiwoo said. "For everyone who's hungry. There are a lot of displaced people out there who need food. Good farming stations could help them." "You saved the galaxy," Ambassador Thexanar said slowly. "And you want to help feed refugees? Is that wrong?" Jiwoo looked worried. "I can think of something else if that's not appropriate." "No, it's—" The ambassador stopped and made a sound that was the Vexthari equivalent of a laugh. "It's perfect. It's exactly what I should have expected from you. We will fund every agricultural station in Coalition space. Consider it done." Jiwoo's face lit up with genuine joy. "Really? That's wonderful. Thank you so much. The crowd watching this exchange couldn't quite believe it. She had turned down personal glory for farming equipment. She looked more excited about feeding hungry people than about saving the galaxy. Over the next week, Jiwoo went through endless debriefing sessions. Scientists wanted to understand the ancient mechanism. Military analysts wanted tactical information. Philosophers wanted to discuss the implications of her choices. Jiwoo answered every question patiently, but her descriptions frustrated them. She couldn't explain things in complex scientific terms. She just told them what happened in simple words. The mechanism was testing species, she said. It wanted to see if we could think about others instead of just ourselves. When I showed it that humans could do that, it stopped the test. But what about the power it offered you? A scientist asked. You could have reshaped reality. I didn't need to reshape reality, Jiwoo said. Reality is fine the way it is. I just needed to turn off the test so people would be safe. Weren't you tempted by the power? Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. A little, she admitted. It would have been amazing to have that kind of ability, but I would have had to stop being me to get it, and I like being me. The debriefing committee looked at each other. They were dealing with someone who had been offered godhood and turned it down because she was happy with her simple life. In private moments, Jiwoo reconnected with her friends. Heejin hugged her so hard Jiwoo thought her ribs might crack. Don't ever do that again, Heejin said, crying and laughing at the same time. I'll try not to, Jiwoo promised. But I can't promise anything. You know how I am. I know. That's what terrifies me. Chief Byung-ho just looked at his ship's damage report and sighed. You beat this poor ship half to death. I'm sorry, Chief, I'll help with the repairs. You absolutely will not, Byung-ho said firmly. You're taking a vacation. Actual rest. No fixing things for at least 2 weeks, but that's an order, engineer. Jiwoo wilted a little. She didn't know what to do with herself if she couldn't work. Lieutenant Sumin presented her with an updated log. She had documented Jiwoo's entire mission based on the debriefing reports and sensor data. It was written with military precision but clear admiration. This is the official record, Sumin said. This is how history will remember what you did. Jiwoo read it and made corrections. Not to her own actions, but to give credit to the ship designers whose work held the vessel together. To acknowledge the coalition scientists whose research helped her understand what she was facing. To thank the friends who gave her courage to go. Commander Dae-hyun found Jiwoo in the agricultural bay, exactly where he expected her to be. She was checking on the tomato plants, humming her grandmother's song. How are you really? He asked. Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment. I'm tired, she finally said, and I'm happy to be home. And I keep thinking about all the people on those dead ships. They tried just as hard as I did. They were just as brave, but they didn't make it. Why do you think you succeeded when they failed? I don't know if I was special or if I just got lucky, Jiwoo said. Maybe the mechanism was ready to stop testing. Maybe it had been waiting for someone like me. Or maybe, she touched a tomato plant gently. Maybe I just wanted to help more than I wanted to survive. And that made the difference. You gave up godhood to stay human, the commander said. Do you regret that choice? Jiwoo smiled. No, being human is enough. Being me is enough. I have friends I love. I have work that matters. I have plants that need tending. What more could I want? Most people would want power, recognition, glory. I have recognition now, and honestly, it's uncomfortable, Jiwoo said with a laugh. I preferred it when people didn't stare at me all the time. While Jiwoo tried to return to normal life on the station, stories about her spread across the galaxy at incredible speed. Each species interpreted her actions through their own cultural understanding. The warrior Grimmeth told tales of the small fighter who defeated the void with strength of spirit. The crystalline ether sang songs about the engineer of souls who rebuilt hope from despair. The aquatic Delphini created water dances depicting the gentle one who chose compassion over power. Dozens of versions of the story emerged. In some, Jiwoo fought terrible monsters. In others, she solved impossible puzzles. Some versions made her 10 feet tall. Others gave her magic abilities. The real Jiwoo, all 5 feet and 2 inches of her, just tried to do her job and avoid the attention. But the galaxy had decided she was a legend. And legends couldn't be ignored. Parents named their children after her. Academies taught courses about her choices. Artists created works inspired by her journey. She had become a symbol of hope and selflessness. The greenhouse smelled like home. Fresh soil, growing plants, and the clean air that the filters pumped through the dome. Hana knelt between rows of tomato plants, checking each one with careful hands. Her fingers were dirty from the earth, and she smiled. This was all she ever wanted. A simple life. Growing food. Taking care of things. Outside the greenhouse, New Haven colony spread across the valley. 3,000 people lived here now. They had left Earth 7 years ago to build something new. Something peaceful. Hana and her husband Junho had planted the first seeds in this soil. Now the colony had farms, homes, and even a school for the children. Looking good, Junho said, walking into the greenhouse. He carried 2 cups of coffee. His smile made her heart warm even after 5 years of marriage. The tomatoes will be ready next week, Hana said, taking the coffee. Doyen says the northern fields are doing well too. Doyen was her younger brother. He worked as an engineer, fixing the machines that kept the colony running. He always joked that Hana got the green thumb while he got the technical brain. Junho kissed her forehead. I need to check the water pumps. See you at dinner. I'll make something special, Hana promised. She watched him leave, then turned back to her plants. The sun was bright today. Perfect for growing. Perfect for living. Then the sky caught fire. Hana looked up through the clear dome. The blue sky was suddenly full of ships. Huge ships. Metal and strange. They appeared from nowhere, like someone had torn holes in space itself. Their hulls were dark and covered in sharp angles. They didn't look like any Earth ship she had ever seen. What? Hana whispered. Sirens started screaming across the colony. The emergency alert. Hana had only heard it during drills. Her hands started shaking. The ships opened fire. Beams of red light shot down from the sky. They hit the mining facility at the edge of the colony. The explosion was massive. Hana felt the shock wave even inside the greenhouse. The building shook. Glass cracked. Plants fell over. Hana ran outside. People were screaming and running everywhere. Children cried. Adults shouted questions that nobody could answer. The sky was full of fire and falling metal. Another beam hit the main administration building. It exploded into pieces. Hana saw people thrown through the air. Her stomach twisted with horror. Her communicator buzzed. Doyen's voice came through, shaking and afraid. Hana, where are you? By the greenhouses. What's happening? I don't know. They're aliens, I think. Real aliens. And they're killing us. His voice broke. Get to the emergency shelter. Now more explosions. The ground shook again and again. Hana started running toward the emergency shelter near the colony center. Other people ran with her. Everyone was terrified. Something flew overhead, a smaller ship dropping from the big ones in the sky. It landed hard in the middle of the street. Dust and smoke filled the air. When it cleared, Hana saw them. The aliens were tall and covered in hard shells like insects. They had 4 arms and moved fast, too fast. They carried weapons that glowed with blue light. When they fired, people fell down and didn't get up. Run! Someone screamed. Hana ran. Her lungs burned. Her legs hurt. Behind her, she heard more shooting. More screams. The sounds of her home being destroyed. She reached the emergency shelter. Doyen was there, pulling people inside. His face was covered in dirt and blood. Come on, hurry. Hana stumbled inside. The shelter was packed with people. Maybe 400, out of 3,000. Where was everyone else? Junho. Hana grabbed Doyen's arm. Have you seen Junho? Doyen's face went pale. He didn't answer. Doyen, where is he? He was at the water station when it got hit. Doyen's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The world stopped. Everything went silent except for the pounding of Hana's heart. Junho, her Junho. Gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye, she wanted to scream. To cry, to collapse. But there were alien soldiers outside and people needed to survive. Hana forced herself to breathe. To think. To be strong. The shelter shook as explosions continued outside. Hours passed. The attacks finally stopped, but nobody felt safe. People whispered in the darkness. Some cried quietly. Children held on to their parents. Mira, one of the colony doctors, was trying to treat the injured with the few supplies in the shelter. She was older than Hana, maybe 35, with tired eyes that had seen too much today. Blood covered her clothes. We can't stay here, Mira said quietly to Hana. They'll find us eventually. Where can we go? Hana asked. The old mining tunnels. Or maybe we try to reach the landing pad. If there are any shuttles left, Doyen joined them. I can check the security cameras from here. Maybe see what's happening outside. He worked on a console for several minutes. The screen flickered to life. What they saw made everyone go silent. The colony was destroyed. Buildings were burning. Bodies lay in the streets. The alien ships had landed everywhere. Soldiers were moving through the ruins looking for survivors. They're hunting us, someone whispered. What do they want? Another person asked. Doesn't matter, Hana said. Her voice was cold. Something had changed inside her when Junho died. They killed our families, destroyed our homes. We don't surrender to them. What choice do we have? An older man asked. They have warships. We have mining equipment. Hana looked around the shelter. These were farmers, engineers, teachers, normal people who just wanted to live in peace. But peace was gone now. Junho was gone. Everything was gone. We fight, Hana said, or we die trying. Doyen pulled up another camera view. Wait, look, landing pad 7. There's a shuttle still there. The aliens haven't reached it yet. That's halfway across the colony, Mira said. Through all of them. Then we go through them, Hana said. She walked to the emergency equipment locker. Inside were tools, cutting lasers for mining, explosive charges for breaking rock, vehicles for hauling materials, not weapons. But they would have to be enough. Anyone who wants to surrender can stay here, Hana announced to the shelter. Maybe they'll be merciful. Maybe not. But I'm going to that shuttle. I'm going to survive. And someday, somehow, I'm going to make them pay for what they did today. She expected people to be afraid, to refuse. But something changed in the shelter. People stood up. The shock and horror in their eyes turned to something harder, something angry. I'll help, Doyun said. Me too, Mira added. Others nodded. Not everyone. Some were too scared or too hurt. But enough. Maybe 200 people ready to fight. They armed themselves with whatever they could find. Mining lasers, heavy tools. One man had an old hunting rifle. It wasn't much. But it was something. Hana looked at her dirty hands. This morning they had been in the soil growing food. Now they held a cutting laser like a weapon. This wasn't what she wanted. This wasn't the life she dreamed of, but Junho was dead. Her home was burning, and she would not die quietly. Stay together, Hana told the group. Protect each other. And get to that shuttle. We're leaving this hell. They opened the shelter door. Outside, their world was ash and fire and death. But they walked into it anyway. Because they were human, and humans don't give up. They just didn't know it yet. But the galaxy was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Jiwoo crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel, her small flashlight cutting through the darkness. The tunnel was too small for most aliens who lived on the station, but it was perfect for her. She was small even for a human, and she didn't mind tight spaces. Actually, she liked them. They were quiet and peaceful. She hummed an old Korean song her grandmother taught her. The melody bounced off the metal walls as she worked her way toward the broken junction box. 3 senior engineers had looked at this problem yesterday. They said it would take a week to fix and might need new parts from Earth. Jiwoo thought she could fix it today. The junction box sat behind a tangle of pipes and cables. Jiwoo squeezed through the gap and opened her tool bag. She didn't rush. Rushing made mistakes. Instead, she looked carefully at each wire and connection. Her fingers moved gently over the components, feeling for heat, checking for loose connections. There you are, she whispered to a burnt relay. She pulled out her spare parts kit and began to work. 2 hours later, Jiwoo crawled out of the tunnel and brushed dust from her coveralls. Chief Engineer Byung-ho stood waiting with his arms crossed. Well, he asked. It's working now, Jiwoo said with a small smile. The main relay was damaged, but I had a spare. I also cleaned the secondary connections. They were pretty dirty. Byung-ho shook his head. 3 engineers with 40 years of experience between them said this needed a complete replacement. Jiwoo looked down at her boots. Maybe I just got lucky. Lucky, Byung-ho snorted. You've been lucky a lot lately, haven't you? Jiwoo just smiled and walked away to her next job. Behind her, Byung-ho watched her go with a thoughtful expression. Later that afternoon, Ambassador Thexnar arrived at the station. He was of Exthari, tall and covered in green scales that shimmered under the lights. His people were one of the most respected species in the Galactic Coalition. They were brilliant scientists and philosophers. They looked down on younger species, especially humans. Commander Dae-hyun led the ambassador on a tour of the station. They walked through the main corridors, past shops and restaurants where different alien species mixed and traded. The commander pointed out the new defense systems and the improved medical bay. As they walked, they passed the engineering section. Through an open door, they could see Jiwoo working on a power conduit. She had her head inside an access panel, and her legs dangled as she reached deep into the machinery. "What is that creature doing?" Ambassador Thexnar asked. "That's one of our engineers," Commander Dae-hyun said. "She's repairing a power conduit." The ambassador's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "A human? Doing technical work? I thought your species was limited to simple tasks." Commander Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. "Humans are capable of quite a lot, Ambassador." "Perhaps." The ambassador didn't sound convinced. "But your brains are small, your lifespan's short. You cannot possibly understand systems as complex as coalition technology." Jiwoo heard the conversation. She had very good hearing, but she didn't stop working. She had heard such things before. Many aliens thought humans were stupid or weak. Getting angry about it wouldn't change their minds. Only good work could do that. She finished with the conduit and climbed down. As she walked past the ambassador and commander, she gave them both a small bow and a gentle smile. "Have a good day," she said softly. Ambassador Thexnar watched her go. So polite, at least. Like a well-trained pet. Commander Dae-hyun said nothing, but his hands clenched into fists. That evening, Jiwoo went to the agricultural bay. This was her favorite place on the station. Rows of earth plants grew under special lights. Tomatoes, lettuce, beans, even some flowers. The smell reminded her of home. Her friend Hye-jin was there, checking on the tomato plants. Dr. Park Hye-jin was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life. She was also one of the few people on the station who truly understood Jiwoo. "I heard the ambassador was rude today," Hye-jin said, without looking up. "He doesn't understand humans yet," Jiwoo replied. She knelt beside a tomato plant and gently touched its leaves. "That's okay. Maybe someday he will. You're too patient with them." Hye-jin stood and wiped dirt from her hands. "They treat us like we're nothing." "We are nothing to them right now," Jiwoo said. She smiled up at her friend. "But we can still do good work. We can still be kind. That matters," Hye-jin sighed. "Sometimes I wonder if you're really human." "No one else I know is as calm as you," Jiwoo laughed. It was a soft musical sound.
"I'm very human."
"I just don't see the point in being angry all the time." The next morning, alarms woke everyone on the station. A coolant leak in the reactor section, the warning lights flashed red, and automated voices told everyone to evacuate that area. Jiwoo was in a nearby corridor when she heard the alarm. She grabbed her tools and ran toward the reactor instead of away from it. Other engineers were running the opposite direction, their faces pale with fear. "The leak is too bad," one of them shouted as they passed her. "The whole section will be flooded with radiation in minutes." Jiwoo didn't stop running. She reached the reactor section and sealed the door behind her. Through the thick window, she could see the coolant spraying from a broken pipe. The temperature in the room was already rising. Her suit's sensors screamed warnings at her. She had maybe 30 minutes before the heat killed her. Maybe less. Jiwoo walked calmly to the pipe. She assessed the damage, calculated what she needed to do. The fix was possible, but it would be tight. Very tight. She worked steadily, her hands moving with practiced precision. The heat made her sweat. The radiation counter on her suit climbed higher. She ignored both and focused on the pipe. Weld this section. Replace that seal. Reroute the pressure through the emergency line. Each step had to be perfect. One mistake and the reactor could go critical. That would destroy half the station. 3 hours later, Jiwoo emerged from the reactor section. Her suit was scorched. Her face was red from heat. Small burns marked her hands. But the coolant leak was fixed. Chief Engineer Byung-ho grabbed her shoulders. "Are you insane? You could have died in there." "Someone had to fix it," Jiwoo said. She swayed slightly, tired from the heat and radiation. "I'm sorry it took so long. I had to make sure everything was secure." "Sorry?" Byung-ho looked like he might cry or yell. He couldn't decide which. "You saved 3,000 lives and you're apologizing for taking too long?" Jiwoo blinked at him, confused. "But it was my job to fix it." Later that night, Commander Dae-hyun sat in his office reviewing the incident report. The more he read, the more troubled he became. Ji-woo had been exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. She had worked in temperatures that should have knocked her unconscious. The medical team said she should be in critical condition, but she only had some minor burns and fatigue. She had gone back to her quarters, eaten dinner, and was probably asleep by now. It wasn't normal. It wasn't possible, but somehow Ji-woo had done it. The commander pulled up her personnel file and began reading through her entire history on the station. As he read, a pattern began to emerge. Small incidents, always written off as luck or sensor errors. Ji-woo lifting equipment that should have been too heavy. Ji-woo solving problems impossibly fast. Ji-woo surviving situations that should have killed her. And always she acted like it was nothing special. Commander Dae-hyun closed the file and looked out his window at the stars. Far beyond, in the darkness of space, sensors had detected something strange. An area where stars were going dark, one system at a time. The coalition scientists were worried. They had sent ships to investigate. None of those ships had returned. The commander didn't know it yet, but that expanding darkness would soon change everything. And quiet, humble Ji-woo, the strange girl who smiled while fixing broken things, would be at the center of it all. In her small quarters, Ji-woo lay in bed and looked at the ceiling. She was tired, but sleep wouldn't come. She kept thinking about the darkness in space, the vanishing stars. Something about it made her feel cold inside, made her feel like something terrible was coming. But when it came, she would do what she always did. She would try to help. She would try to fix what was broken. That's just who she was. She closed her eyes and finally drifted to sleep, still humming her grandmother's old song. The news spread through the Galactic Coalition like wildfire. 3 star systems had gone completely dark in just 5 days. No light, no signals, nothing. It was as if someone had turned off the universe in those places. On Outpost Serenity, everyone felt the fear. Aliens who had lived peacefully together suddenly looked at each other with suspicion. Could this darkness be a weapon? Was someone's species responsible? The station's peaceful atmosphere turned tense and worried. Commander Dae-hyun held daily briefings, but he had no good news to share. The coalition's best scientists couldn't explain what was happening. Their most advanced ships had entered the dark zone to investigate. All communication with those ships had stopped. It was as if the darkness swallowed everything. Ji-woo continued her work, but she spent more time than usual looking at the sensor data. Something about the patterns bothered her. The way the systems went dark, the speed of the expansion, the complete silence afterward. It felt wrong in a way she couldn't explain. "You're staring at those screens again," Hee-jin said, bringing her friend a cup of tea. "I'm trying to see if there's a pattern," Ji-woo replied. She accepted the tea with a grateful smile. "If I can understand how it moves, maybe I can predict where it will go next." "You're an engineer, not a scientist. Engineering is just practical science," Ji-woo said. She took a sip of tea. "Everything has a pattern. Even chaos has rules." Before Hye-jin could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Not the steady warning of a maintenance issue. This was the sharp, urgent sound of immediate danger. "All personnel to emergency stations." Commander Dae-hyun's voice boomed through the speakers. "This is not a drill. Evacuate the central plaza immediately." Ji-woo and Hye-jin ran toward the nearest emergency station, following the flow of people through the corridors. Everyone was scared but trying to stay calm. Aliens of dozens of species moved together toward safety. Through a window, Ji-woo saw the central plaza. Hundreds of people were gathered there for an evacuation drill. And above them, a massive cargo container was falling. The anti-gravity systems had failed catastrophically. 100 tons of metal and supplies was dropping straight toward the crowd. Time seemed to slow down. Ji-woo saw the people below. She saw the children, the elderly, the strong, and the weak all mixed together. She saw them looking up at death falling from above. She heard their screams. She didn't think. She just moved. One moment, Ji-woo was beside Hye-jin in the corridor. The next moment, she was in the plaza, standing directly beneath the falling container. She didn't remember running. She didn't remember how she got there so fast. She was just there because she needed to be. Ji-woo raised her arms above her head and braced her legs. The container hit her hands with a sound like thunder. It should have crushed her instantly. It should have smashed her into the floor, broken every bone, turned her into nothing. The laws of physics said a 60-kilogram woman could not stop a 100-ton object falling at terminal velocity. But Ji-woo stopped it. Her feet sank into the metal floor, leaving deep impressions. Her arms should have shattered. Instead, they held firm. The container pressed down with impossible weight, and Jiwoo pushed back with impossible strength. "Move," she shouted at the frozen crowd. Her voice was strained but clear. "Everyone move, now!" Her words broke the spell. People scattered, running in every direction away from the plaza. Parents grabbed children. Friends helped each other. In less than a minute, the plaza was empty. Jiwoo's arms were shaking. Sweat poured down her face. She could feel her strength starting to give out. Very slowly, very carefully, she began to lower the container, not dropping it but guiding it down with control. The metal groaned as it settled onto the plaza floor. When it was finally down, Jiwoo's legs gave out. She collapsed beside the container, gasping for breath. Commander Dae-hyun was the first to reach her. He knelt beside her, his face pale with shock. How did you... Is everyone okay?" Jiwoo asked. Her voice was weak. "Did everyone get out?" Yes, everyone's safe because of you." The commander looked at her arms. They should be broken, crushed, destroyed. Instead, they just had some bruises forming. "What are you?" Jiwoo looked confused by the question. "I'm an engineer, sir. I saw a problem, so I fixed it." She tried to stand but couldn't. Her body had reached its limit. Commander Dae-hyun caught her as she started to fall and carried her to the medical bay. The medical team was baffled. They ran every test they had. Jiwoo's bones were normal human bones. Her muscles were normal human muscles. There was no genetic modification, no cybernetic enhancement, no alien technology hidden in her body. She was completely, perfectly human. But she had done something impossible. While Jiwoo rested in the medical bay, Ambassador Thexnar demanded to see Commander Dae-hyun immediately. "I want access to that human," the ambassador said. His scaled face was intense with excitement. "She is a scientific impossibility. I must study her." "Absolutely not," Commander Dae-hyun said firmly. "She's a member of my crew, not a research specimen." "You don't understand the implications." The ambassador's voice rose. "If humans can do what she did, your species might be the most powerful in the galaxy. We need to understand this." "What we need," the commander said coldly, "is to let her rest. She saved hundreds of lives today. She deserves peace, not to be poked and prodded like a lab animal." The ambassador left, but not happily. As soon as he was gone, the commander began reviewing security footage from the past 3 years. He asked the station's computer to flag any incident involving Jiwoo in unusual circumstances. The results horrified him. 47 incidents. Small things, mostly. Jiwoo lifting equipment that should have required 3 people. Jiwoo repairing systems in areas with toxic atmospheres that should have killed her in minutes. Jiwoo working through radiation levels that should have given her fatal doses. Jiwoo solving impossible problems in impossible time frames. Always the incidents were written off. Sensor errors. Exaggerated reports. Lucky coincidences. No one had put the pieces together because each individual incident seemed barely possible. But altogether, the pattern was clear. Jiwoo had always been special. She had just been very good at seeming normal. In the medical bay, Jiwoo woke to find Hee-jin sitting beside her bed. Her friend's eyes were red from crying. "You could have died," Hee-jin whispered. "That container should have killed you." "But it didn't," Jiwoo said gently. She reached out and took her friend's hand. "Everyone is safe. That's what matters. How did you do it? How did you stop it?" Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment. "I don't really know. I just couldn't let those people die, so I didn't." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have." Jiwoo looked at her friend with sad eyes. "I'm sorry I scared you, but I'd do it again if I had to." Hee-jin laughed through her tears. "I know you would. That's what scares me." Outside the medical bay, a young security officer named Sumin stood guard. She had been in the plaza when the container fell. She had been certain she was about to die. Then she saw a small woman in engineering coveralls do something that defied every law of nature. Sumin had started writing everything down in her personal log, not because anyone asked her to, but because someone needed to remember. Someone needed to record what Jiwoo had done. Across the station, word spread quickly. The strange human engineer who smiled at everyone had saved hundreds of lives. Aliens who had ignored Jiwoo before now stopped and stared when she walked past. Some looked at her with respect. Others with fear. A few with greedy curiosity. Jiwoo noticed the changed atmosphere when she was finally released from medical. She didn't like it. She preferred being invisible. being just another maintenance worker. Now people watched her. They whispered. They treated her differently. She just wanted things to go back to normal. But normal was gone forever. That night, as Ji-woo tried to sleep, new reports came in. 5 more star systems had gone dark. The void was expanding faster. The coalition was in panic. Some species talked about fleeing the galaxy entirely. In an emergency session, the Coalition Council discussed sending another research team into the darkness. They needed information. They needed to understand what they were facing. But every species knew it was a death sentence. No one wanted to volunteer their people. In her small quarters, Ji-woo lay awake and listened to the reports through her datapad. She thought about the falling container. She thought about the moment when she knew people would die unless she acted. She thought about the growing darkness swallowing the stars. Someone would need to go into that darkness. Someone would need to try to stop it. The coalition would argue for days or weeks about who should go, what ships to use, what equipment was needed. But Ji-woo already knew the answer. She would go. Not because she was special or powerful or brave. Not because she wanted glory or recognition, but because people needed help, and helping people was what she did. It was simply who she was. She closed her eyes and began to make mental plans. What equipment would she need? What supplies? What kind of ship could handle the unknown conditions? Outside her window, the stars shined bright and beautiful. But beyond them, in the cold depths of space, the darkness continued to grow. And soon, very soon, Ji-woo would fly straight into it. The Coalition Council meeting was chaos. Representatives from all 47 member species argued with each other through hologram connections. Their voices overlapped, creating a wall of sound that meant nothing. Commander Dae-hyun stood in the station's communication center, watching the meeting with growing frustration. For 3 days, the council had debated sending a mission into the dark zone. Every species had reasons why they couldn't go. Their ships weren't fast enough. Their people weren't expendable. Their technology wasn't suitable. They were making excuses because they were afraid. "This is pointless," Ambassador Thexnar said. He stood beside the commander, all 4 of his eyes focused on the arguing holograms. "No one will volunteer. They would rather let the darkness consume the galaxy than risk their own people. Then we're all dead," Commander Dae-hyun said quietly. "The darkness is expanding. In 6 months it will reach populated systems. In a year it will be unstoppable. I know." The ambassador's scales rippled in a gesture of despair. "But fear is stronger than logic." A soft voice interrupted them. "Excuse me, sirs." They turned to find Ji-woo standing in the doorway. She wore her usual engineering coveralls and carried a datapad. Her smile was gentle and a little nervous. "I need to access the communication channel," she said. "I have something to say to the council." Commander Dae-hyun frowned. "Ji-woo, this is a closed session. Only ambassadors and commanders can speak." "I know, sir." "I'm sorry, but this is important." She looked at him with those calm, steady eyes. "Please." Something in her voice made him step aside. Ji-woo walked to the communication console and entered a command sequence. Suddenly her image appeared on every hologram screen in the council chamber. The arguing stopped. Thousands of aliens across the galaxy stared at the small human woman who had interrupted their important meeting. "Hello," Ji-woo said. She gave a small bow. "My name is Han Ji-woo. I'm an engineer on Outpost Serenity. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to tell you something important." A Vex-Thari counselor's hologram leaned forward. "Human, you have no authority to speak here." "I know," Ji-woo said, "but I have something you need. I have a volunteer for the mission into the darkness." The council chamber went completely silent. "Who?" someone asked. "What species is foolish enough to volunteer for suicide?" Ji-woo's smile didn't waver. "Me, I'll go." The silence broke into shocked noise. Aliens shouted questions and objections. How could a human possibly succeed where their best warriors and scientists would fail? This was madness. This was insulting. Ji-woo waited patiently for the noise to die down. Then she spoke again, her voice soft but somehow cutting through all the shouting. "I know I'm not strong like a Grimmith warrior. I'm not smart like a Vex-Thari scientist. I'm just an engineer who fixes things. But someone needs to go, and I can't sit here doing nothing while people are in danger." She paused. "So I'll go. Maybe I'll fail. Maybe I'll die. But at least I'll have tried. This is unacceptable." A counselor from the insectoid krill species buzzed angrily. "We cannot send a single human on a mission this important." "Then come with me," Jiwoo said simply. "Send your warriors, your scientists, your best people. I'd be happy to have help, but whether anyone comes with me or not, I'm going." Ambassador Thexnar stared at her. "You cannot be serious. You understand this is almost certainly death?" "Yes," Jiwoo said. "But people are dying now because we're too scared to act. I'd rather die trying to help than live knowing I did nothing." Commander Daehyun grabbed her arm. "Jiwoo, no. I won't allow this. You're under my command, and I order you to stand down." Jiwoo looked at him with sad eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I respect you very much, but I'm going anyway. You can court-martial me, put me in prison, whatever you need to do, but I'm still going." "Why?" The commander's voice was anguished. "Why throw your life away?" "I'm not throwing it away," Jiwoo said gently. "I'm using it for something important." "That's different." The council argued for another hour, but Jiwoo stood firm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue or debate. She just repeated the same simple truth. Someone had to go, and she would. Finally, the council agreed. They would prepare a fast ship with the best equipment available. Jiwoo would have 1 week to prepare before launch. When the meeting ended, Commander Daehyun escorted Jiwoo back to her quarters. He didn't speak the entire walk. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. At her door, he finally broke his silence. "I can't protect you from this. I don't need protection, sir. I need you to believe I can do this." "I've seen what you can do," the commander said. "I know you're capable of impossible things. But this, Jiwoo, no one has ever come back from that darkness. The best ships in the galaxy have vanished without a trace. How can you possibly succeed?" Jiwoo thought about the question. "I don't know if I can, but I have to try. If I don't, who will?" The commander had no answer for that. Over the next week, Jiwoo prepared with the same careful attention she gave to all her work. She studied the ship they assigned her, learning every system. She packed supplies efficiently. She planned for every contingency she could imagine. Heejin spent every free moment with her friend. They talked about old memories, about their childhoods on Earth, about dreams they'd had. They didn't talk about the mission. That future was too heavy to discuss. On the third day, Heejin finally asked the question that had been bothering her. "Do you know what you are? Do you understand that you can do things normal humans can't?" Jiwoo was quiet for a long time. They were sitting in the agricultural bay, surrounded by earth plants. The smell of growing things filled the air. "I know I'm different," Jiwoo finally said, "but I don't feel special. When I stopped that container, I wasn't thinking about being strong or powerful. I just saw people who needed help and I couldn't let them die." She touched a tomato plant gently. "Maybe that's my difference. I can't give up when people need me." "That's not a difference," Heejin said. "That's just who you are." "Exactly." Jiwoo smiled at her friend. "I'm still just me." Chief Engineer Byung-ho tried to give Jiwoo advice about the mission, but he kept stopping mid-sentence. Finally, he just pulled her into a tight hug and told her to come back safely. Jiwoo promised she would try. Lieutenant Soo-min presented Jiwoo with a personal gift. It was her own log, the one where she'd been documenting all of Jiwoo's good deeds over the years. "This is who you are," Soo-min said. "Not just someone who does impossible things, but someone who helps people every single day. I wanted you to see that. I wanted you to know that you matter to us." Jiwoo read through the log with tears running down her face. She saw herself through someone else's eyes for the first time. All the small kindnesses she'd forgotten. All the moments she thought were insignificant. Soo-min had recorded them all. "Thank you," Jiwoo whispered. "This means more than you know." On the final night before launch, Jiwoo couldn't sleep. She went to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the darkness was growing. Tomorrow she would fly into it. She felt afraid. That was normal. Only fools weren't afraid of death, but she also felt determined. People needed help. That was all that mattered. Ambassador Thexnar found her there. He stood beside her in silence for several minutes before speaking. "I was wrong about humans. I dismissed your species as weak and simple. I see now that I understood nothing." "You weren't wrong," Jiwoo said. "Most humans are weak and simple. I'm weak and simple too. You stopped a 100-ton container with your bare hands, only because I had to." Jiwoo looked at the ambassador. "Anyone would have done the same in my position." "No," Thexnar said firmly. "They wouldn't have. That's what makes you extraordinary." You do impossible things and think they're ordinary. Jiwoo didn't know how to respond to that, so she said nothing. The next morning, the entire station gathered in the docking bay. Thousands of beings from dozens of species came to witness her departure. They held a ceremony with speeches and blessings from different cultures. Jiwoo stood through it all with patient dignity, though she would have preferred to just leave quietly. Finally, it was time. She boarded her ship and went through the pre-flight checklist. Everything was perfect. The coalition had given her the best equipment they had. She looked back through the viewport one last time. She saw her friends. Commander Dae-hyun standing at attention, his face trying to stay professional. Heejin crying openly. Byung-ho with his arms crossed, looking like a stern father. Soo-min saluting with perfect military precision. Jiwoo smiled and waved, then she launched into space, her ship accelerating toward the expanding darkness that had swallowed so many before her. Behind her, on Outpost Serenity, Heejin began to hum. It was the old Korean song Jiwoo always sang while working. Others took up the tune, not knowing the words but understanding it was both a prayer and a goodbye. The small ship became a bright point of light, then a distant star, then nothing at all. Jiwoo was gone, flying into the void, and the galaxy could only wait to see if she would ever return. Part 4. Into the dark for the first hour, everything was normal. Jiwoo's ship flew through regular space at maximum speed. The stars were bright and clear. Her instruments worked perfectly. She hummed her grandmother's song and monitored the systems. Then she crossed the boundary into the dark zone.